in different locations of the world. These plagues, darkness, locusts, death, stampedes, hailstones in Texas the size of 2 hands. There was a hailstone that fell in Texas. It was 6.5 pounds. Are you serious? I mean, these are the things. And then look how many storms and tornadoes and things. Mike, from around the world, we need to know what's going on.
Pastor Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, there you are.
Oh,
my headset did a hiccup type thing on me.
Okay. Well, it could be, it could be the NSA playing around. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say anything about any of the 3-letter agencies.
There we are. How about that?
No, you were great. No, you're gone. Where'd you go?
Can you hear me now?
Now we hear you, yes.
Oh, good to go? Okay.
Good to go. Good to go.
My goodness. Everything goes past Paul, and this is no joke. Every single time something happens right before I dial in.
What you mean around the world issues?
Yeah, it doesn't matter where I'm at, because normally I'll connect through a hub and then go to you, but it's still something goes haywire.
Right. Well, you've got to do this to protect yourself in your identity and all the things you're doing, and we appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time out on Thursday nights for these broadcasts. It's very important. I mean, people have come to the point where this is like one of the highlights of their week. I mean, I get letters all the time that this is so important to get the info. So let me throw some stuff out for you. There's some wild stuff going on. And if you could see the picture, Mike, that cloud, that is the actual picture of the black, dark cloud over Istanbul, Turkey. For 5 to 6 minutes, this was a sunny day. The sun literally was blocked out, and it became midnight. This was not a solar eclipse. This is a cloud.
Right.
And Istanbul used to be Constantinople. We understand the Grecian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, and Turkey plays a major role in prophecy.
Yeah.
First of all, what causes that?
Well, looking at the clouds and everything else, nobody knew this storm was going to form. Nobody knew that cloud was going to form. And it was thick and very dense. But there was a heat bloom that began in Turkey probably about 15 minutes before that cloud. That cloud formed so fast, right?
Yeah.
And it after it passed, after everybody was in shock and it passed, of course, it rained heavy, very heavy. But here's the part. It did not follow any of the storm tracks or streams or any of those things. It just came out of nowhere, right? It came out of nowhere. I couldn't help but to think of a couple of scriptures, because we're going to see a lot more of that, Pastor Paul, the conditions. I went back and took a snapshot of the conditions in Turkey during that storm. We're going to see if people, if they think the weather, they can handle the weather, they haven't seen the weather yet. They haven't seen what it's capable of. That wasn't a microburst. That's not what that was. That wasn't some rapid storm formation that was following a cold front. No, this formed out of nowhere. It really did. It was a force that held it there because it was the cloud tops were, it looked like somebody had a video in fast motion, right?
Yeah.
It formed out of nowhere. The heat bloom that was coming up from that thing was incredible. But, it reminds me of Zephaniah 1:15, when it was talking about the days of wrath, a day of trouble and distress. But it specifically says within that scripture that a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Right.
Yeah.
And that was also referenced, twice before that? Psalms 18:11 and 2 Samuel, I believe, made reference to it first in 22:12. So we have that clouds and thick darkness theme,
gloominess,
so to speak, dealing with God's wrath, right?
Yeah.
And it just so happens that is the think tank for the Middle East. That is a driving force in the Middle East.
So you're saying this cloud right here over my head on this picture, this is a forewarning, a sign of God's wrath that's coming.
Yeah, I do believe that's a foreshadowing, because that was no sensor, no meteorology, no data, nowhere. The ISS and some of the satellite tracking, they picked it up as it was happening. They couldn't foresee it. Nobody could foresee it.
Right.
And it just, how it formed and the speed at which it did form was just impossible. Right.
So it was a
Especially,
phenomenon. It was
right.
supernatural is what I'm hearing you say.
It looked like it was one of those in a movie set or something like that, some CG in real life. And some of the folks who were already doing air sorties in that area or patrols in that area, they were taken by that. It was thick and very dense. And it just maintained itself, and then it left, and then the storm front came through. So
yeah,
that really can't happen the way it was, but we're going to have a lot more of that.
Now that and you quoted some great scriptures. I know I read the one out of Joel where it says that the sun will be darkened, the sun and the moon are darkened, and all that. And it's again, it's talking about the coming of the Lord, talking about the judgment, the wrath of God. You read some great scriptures there that really says it's darkness, gloominess, thick clouds, darkness. So let me ask you. So, meanwhile, in Mecca this week, of course, it's Ramadan, and all of a sudden, locusts came in. Now, I know locusts is in the Middle East, and they kind of move around, but this is really weird because they weren't really having a big locust issue. But locusts came in and landed on these guys as they were marching, praying and walking around the black stone there, the Kaaba. And then a rainstorm came, very strong rain. And as it rained so hard, cockroaches crawled up from underneath their feet and began to jump on their clothing and stuff. So is this a phenomenon? Is this a weird, is it just a coincidence? I mean, what in the world was that?
I think it's a foreshadowing. For one, insects are very sensitive to certain things, right? But, even in the Bible, God commands insects, right?
That's
he gives
true.
a likeness to things he commands. He commands insects. And so we have this happening there, especially with the insects coming topside, because it was some beetles associated with that, some meat-eating beetles that were associated with that.
Meat-eating
And so something drove insects from deep in the ground to the surface. The same thing that will likely happen in Russia here very soon with part of a water issue they're going to have. All those insects will come topside. And we're going to see a lot more of that in the USA too, right?
Yep.
When in the Middle East, it normally stays reasonably dry in those places. For insects to be driven up means that moisture hit a pretty vast radius, right, which normally does not take place. So that same thing, and what I'm saying, this foreshadowing in the Middle East, and especially with what's going on, with what Turkey is doing and the talks are having, what Saudi Arabia is doing with Jordan, what China is doing with all of them.
Right.
And we have all these issues happening in the middle of this Ukrainian-Russian conflict, which is Russia and NATO conflict. So we have all these things happening with these foreshadowings taking place. I suspect with the insects and with these clouds, we're going to see that here in the United States. They're going to see it in Bolivia, in Brazil, in all those different places, Venezuela. Africa is also going to have a water problem. They've not dealt with the water. They're about to get. There's a new portion of the ocean forming and right in the middle of Africa.
I know.
And it keeps filling up with water.
What is that?
We're having,
Mike? How can
those are continents that are pulling apart. We have continents actually pulling apart, Pascal. In fact, it's getting so bad now that there is a heat anomaly on the entirety of the west coast of the USA, right? That water right next to the land is superheated, and it's going to become a driver of some massive, massive, massive storms. And people ought to get ready for that because people are going to be sick of water right before they won't see water for many years. But Mexico has the same problem, these heat anomalies. And in the Gulf, the temperature went up another, 3 or 4 degrees. There are heat anomalies there also.
Are you expecting unbelievable hurricanes this year because of the warmth of the Gulf?
Yeah, that. But also, everybody should take note. The next 2 weeks, we have some pretty big frontal systems that are forming, and a massive monster system will start to form probably in about, I say in about, after a 6-day period. After a 6-day period, we're going to see the formation of a very monstrous storm that will do some real damage. I don't know what they're going to call it, but it won't be a hurricane, right? They're going to have to come up with some new names for some of this atmospheric phenomena, because it's going to be quite, but unlike any other time in history, these storms are going to cost lives, right? Nobody's prepared for this. The USA, of course, were preoccupied with fighting each other. In other countries, they're trying to do a power grab, in the Middle East and Russia. China's making moves all over the world. South America is about to be inundated with a bunch of Chinese troops. Australia is going to find themselves cut off. And we're going to probably lose an island due to a volcanic eruption very soon near Australia, somewhere in that province. So we have a lot of things happening right now, and they're building. They're just really building. Right now, it's relative peace compared to what's about to take place.
So in other words, you see China aggressively now. We can see that. They're making deals with everybody. And I see Emmanuel Macron now is buddying up with President Xi. So he's going to try to bring Europe into some kind of neutrality. He's trying to figure out a way to, I guess he's caught between Russia and China. We see that China was able to put a peace deal together between Iran and Saudi Arabia. We're watching now Brazil is buddying up to China. South Africa is. India is working into the BRIC nations. So, and we're nowhere to be found. I mean, it's like we just fell asleep or fell off the face of the earth. We're not driving the ship. We're not in charge of the world. Literally, we're not. So while all this is going on, simultaneously, you're telling us that there's apocalyptic events going on with these superstorms, hurricanes, cyclones, these crazy phenomenons of weather that we're seeing now, and earthquakes and volcanoes. You're mentioning a volcano. I'm worried about the one in Colombia, if that thing's going to blow. You keep telling us how the earth is pulling apart, how magma's rising from the inside out. I mean, is this like a simultaneous thing? Pestilence. Now you're going into insects. Didn't he mention pestilence? Jesus did in Matthew 24. I mean, Mike, everything at the same time.
Yeah, it'd be like a conflagration. One of the big factors is that it's getting worse and worse and worse. If anybody were to look over the data for the last 20 years, they would see a trend line that never stops going up, right? So the Earth is actually. It's really doing, it's just pulling apart in all sorts of places. And it will continue, and it's going to escalate, right? Now, a lot of these scientific teams, they're trying to find a way to mitigate damage to themselves. The elitists, those people who have a lot of money, they want to stay alive.
Right.
So they have been investing in technologies to keep themselves alive. They know what happened to the food. They know what's happening to the air. They know what's happening to the oceans. And it's not like things are coming. These things have already been in motion. It's just not hit the point yet where it's taken a lot of human lives. When lives are lost, that's when people normally pay attention. They look into things a bit deeper. They don't, kind of shrug things off their shoulders. And we're quickly reaching that point. The sad part is all this contention that's building up alongside with it. That can't be a coincidence that as people, they're just giving themselves over to all sorts of negative, iniquity. The earth, likewise, all sorts of things are happening, right?
Yep.
They're watching things in space. Our troubles from space are going to multiply in a very quick way. That's going to happen fairly quickly.
Hey, did you see, Mike? Did you see that there was a meteorite that hit Europe this past week since we've been on the air? It was only about 3 foot, but it exploded over France, England, France. It kind of mostly over Germany. So, and they saw it 2.5 hours before it was going to hit. So they didn't have time to post it or alert anybody. They knew it wasn't an extinction event, so they just let it go. And then in the last 6 days, we've had 6 asteroids that have near missed the Earth. They were all closer than the moon, and that's the most I've seen. I mean, I study these every day, and that's the most I've ever seen in 1 week. So I'm starting to wonder, when you talk about this incoming meteor storm, are we getting real close to really heating up?
Oh, yes. And they can't give a warning, right? Everybody's at a boiling point right now. People may seem calm, but the truth is, if something happens in the world that directly affects them or causes them fear, they're going to go overboard, right? They're going to go from zero to violence very quickly. That's also another issue that people are starting to deal with, because there's been a severe loss of self-control among the entire populace of the world. It's really hitting one of those crescendo points, one of those high points. I believe that a type of darkness has already begun to spread all over the earth. It did some years past, but one of the bigger issues is that there comes a breaking point with this basketball, because even within the USA, our government, right? China is doing all sorts of things. They knew this 3 months ago. China had plans, right? They already knew about what China was doing. They're starting to put people on television. You know what they're saying on TV? Some of the people from the UAP office, of course, they've only been, looking at UAPs for 9 months now. But of all the things they could talk about, you know what they said?
What's that?
They said people ought to be, they gave a caution that we can actually see Chinese advanced craft in the atmosphere, in the air, right? They talked about balloons, yes, but they were talking about Chinese advanced craft, and they actually stuck a real legitimate picture of a craft up there, right?
Okay.
That belongs to the Chinese. There were a couple of admirals who were also talking to the press, and they actually admitted that China is about a couple of steps ahead of us as far as technology is concerned, right? They don't want to openly admit that China has surpassed us regarding technology, and the reason why it would upset the morality of those in the USA, right? They don't want to disturb those who are patriotic, who have a sense of pride behind the country, because they dropped the ball 25 years ago. 25 years ago, they dropped the ball. No one saw the urgency in all these developing countries. At some point, they're going to surpass you every single. It's like watching a protege. They fall behind you for a while, but then they become smarter than you are.
Yep.
And it shocks you one day that they know a little more, they can do a little more, because you haven't been watching them, right?
Right.
The same thing is happening to us. And while there is an evil presence in the USA that's keeping anybody it can, is keeping them engaged in fighting each other, right?
Yes.
I can tell you right now, due to watching things over the course of years, every time any nation gets like that, mercy is lifted. Mercy goes away because people start doing these intentional things, right?
Yeah.
They start listening to evil itself. They begin to listen to it and act on it and take part in it and agree with it. I, for one, will not agree with anything in the world. I just can't do that.
No.
But people are doing that. And you have these people who are catalysts for violence. That's all they do. They are positioned. I can't name any names. I know a lot of names, but I can't name them.
Right.
Their sole purpose, Pastor Paul, is to stir up strife, violence, wrath, all sorts of things. And they are figures that people like, trust, look up to, all sorts of things.
Right.
But which is why one of the most important messages I could tell anybody is turn all the way back to the Messiah and do not put man in the Messiah's seat in your life.
No, amen. Amen. Mike, you're speaking about China here for a minute. Can I ask you about these Chinese police, these secret police, China police stations? Now we're finding out there was 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many, and they were planted there by the government of China under our nose. Yet we had to have known about them. I mean, what's going on with that?
Well, Pastor Paul, you'd be surprised. Civil servants, military personnel, agency personnel, right, who have been there for a long time, they'll report something like this to the public side of government. Due to pride, policies, prestige, privilege, and all these other factors, they won't do anything about it. They don't want anybody to make them do anything. I've never seen anything like it. And so just imagine this. Just imagine you went to the president, right? You say you're the guy that goes to the president, but you go to him and you say, hey, we got to do something about so-and-so. And the president looks at you and says, no, I don't think so. And the only reason they do this is because they're so prideful. They don't want you to direct them to do anything. They want to direct everybody else to do everything so they can have all the credit. And if you listen carefully, people in Washington right now are primarily concerned about getting the credit for everything they do. And most of that came from this internet trend, right? Because let's go ahead and face it, in this world, one of the primary drivers behind all social media is that if you're not first, nobody can hear you, nobody can see you or anything else. So what that did was subconsciously it drove people to be first to put something out, to do something first so that they can get the word out. If they don't do this, nobody looks at them. So people right now are primarily concerned about being first. Well, in that type of environment, you're not going to take the word of your subordinates. You want all the credit. So you want the words of, what everybody has to weigh them out and then to present what's going to move the masses with your message. In the meanwhile, some of the more critical things were not being taken seriously, right? So when you don't take things seriously, due to certain policies and everything else, investigations are dropped, important things are dropped, and the enemy grows from within. And here we are.
Well, that's true, and you talked about how we have a civil war going on. Really, what you call a governmental civil war. It's taking place. We see this every day. It seems to be getting worse. Mike, also this week we noticed that things are happening. We're getting the information now that there's more people involved. We got the guy, the whistleblower just came out recently. We've got now 9 members of the first family involved in some type of compensation from governments. I'm not sure what's going on here. Is there real serious concerns in Washington? Is this different? Is this a different atmosphere? I mean, I'm not saying this didn't go on before, but nobody seems to care. There's no accountability. Is there something happening here?
It's been going on too long. Right. We had a paradigm shift with the public, by the way. The public is more demanding now more than ever. Right. The person who didn't have a voice can now go on YouTube and have a voice. So that complicates how people operate. So people have gotten to a point where they want to see transparency. That's what they want to see. Well, that has exposed quite a few rats, right, in different places.
Yeah.
The truth is, with all the salaries that all these officials make, they shouldn't afford anything they have right now. So what eventually is going to happen is everything they've been doing in secret. See, we're at the point now, it doesn't matter who falls for what. All of them have their hands dirty. Every single last one of them have their hands dirty.
Right.
And all of that dirt is about to be exposed. Now, we know that this is a very dangerous result. Once this is exposed, and it's going to be a lot of folks locked up over this initially, right? They have a hit list, and believe me, it will most certainly take place. Once these people are locked up, they're going to speak out probably from behind bars and other places, telling everybody's going to tell on everybody is what we see initializing right now.
Yeah.
When this happens, civilians will lose confidence.
Yep.
All the confidence they had in their favorite figures. Right? Because let's go ahead and realize this one factor. Sometimes you look at these folks and there are people that we feel we can trust.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to be. Right. So what happens when you find out that all of them were doing similar things, that there are egregious things that have taken place, and a little money here and there, that doesn't even touch the surface, Pastor Paul. If people knew right now, there'd be some bad stuff. They know this is coming also, which is why governors are preparing, right? They're prepared to break away from the union for the sake of their own states. Now, this is very real. So we're going to see a pretty fast division. of states, right?
Yep.
Some are in agreement with each other. Those are going to be, that'll be a quadrant there, quadrant here. This is going to evoke NORTHCOM, military civilian containment procedures inside the United States.
Whoa!
And we're going to be all tied up. We're hitting this point. And for anybody who thinks, well, that can't happen, they have made preparations. This started a while ago, right? Now, nobody wanted this to go live. Nobody wanted this to actually take place.
Is that why Jade Helm was going on? Was that just part of the practicing of
They had to have that simulation. Well, during Jade Helm, do you know certain neighborhoods were held up? Certain neighborhoods were not informed that they would be a part of Jade Helm. Do you know that? And they were compensated, of course. But in that neighborhood, high stakes simulations took place, which means people were pulled out of their homes. They didn't know anything. They were screaming and everything else. Trauma was caused, all sorts of things. Of course, they had a nice compensation package, so they normally don't talk about it. And then for certain security practices, they're not going to say anything anyway. So they already know the probable outcome from doing this. And believe me, things are in place.
So you're saying, Mike, and I've been sensing this too, that we're going to, at some point, we're going to start seeing 1, 2, 3 states actually succeed from the Union.
Sure we will.
And then maybe another 2 or 3 over here. And
we're going to see a lot.
And when this starts to happen, you're saying NORTHCOM is going to be activated, and federal troops and federal power will be used to try to bring these states back into line, and that would include citizen containment.
That's what they're for. They can't have a militia larger than the armed forces, right?
Right.
You can't have that.
No.
You can't allow, in fact, you can't allow these states to break apart like that.
Right.
If that were to happen, we would go into an internal war scenario for a long time, right? Over ideologies, we would. Well, they can't allow that to happen, so they've got to stop it before it ever begins. And if people don't do it voluntarily, if they can't see, because they're putting out the message in all media platforms, regardless of whatever station anybody listens to, understand something. What they're talking about right now are traitors to the Union. Is the message people hear. The next thing you hear is we're going to have to strengthen the Union, right? This will be the message everybody's going to hear at a very it's going to be a tough time. And if it means they have to starve out certain states, they're going to do it. This is happening already. If you start looking at the finances of individual states, you're going to find out that some have dipped to levels nobody has ever seen before regarding assets and
well, let's just talk about Florida
compensation. And
let's talk about Florida right now. For unknown reasons, there's no gas in Miami. The whole southern part of the whole southern tip of the state, they have no gasoline. It's insane. This is the United States of America. How can there not be gas? All of a sudden, there's no gas.
Well, that's state operated, right?
Right.
Florida's resisting every single move that they know about. Now, they can't come out and say that any of this is connected with the federal government or something else. They can't say that. So what they're doing is they're not going to accept certain things from the government, so the government can walk in there, right, with their subsidy charts and start directing things. The more the government subsidizes a state, the more control they have.
Yes, that's
over
true.
That state.
That is true.
So the only way to stop that is to cut off, right? You got to cut off what you're getting from the government. If they have enough to redistribute gasoline internally within themselves, and Texas is on board with them, right? But they don't want the subsidy stuff.
No.
Right? They don't want what they call it, welfare fuel or something like that.
No, they don't want that.
No, they don't want that.
No.
So they're going to start repositioning quite a few things. That won't be the only state. There'll be a lot of states doing this. And one of the primary reasons is there's a breakdown in ideologies, right? Now, here's the not so good part about this. That sounds like that's going to be a good thing, right? Here's the problem.
It's not.
The people who are doing this, it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, everybody is going to find out exactly what they were actually doing. Paul, you're a pastor. You do things for the sake of the people, and you take external hits that nobody knows about.
Yes,
they don't know about what's against you. They don't know that. These guys in office, they're not taking hits. They're getting paid, and they're going to continue to get paid. Their
Yeah,
families are set up. Their families are safe, right?
yeah,
They have no they have no troubles like we do. Not one. They
no.
don't have those. So these guys are set up. They're just there, and what they're doing now is protecting their own estates, so to speak, right? They don't want anything to dissolve their estates. They see what's happening to ex-President Trump. They
Yeah,
see what's happening to
they
him.
see it.
So they're protecting themselves from
Yep.
that happening to them. And
Right.
the only way to do that is to start cutting off things right now so that nobody can ever come back in a future time and say, hey, you have to ante up, or we have this
So
dirt
in other
on you.
words,
Now you have to pay up.
they're shutting off these government subsidies so that they can say, you don't have control over us over this, or this.
That's
We're,
right.
we're self-sufficient.
That's right.
We're doing it ourselves. We don't need
That's
you.
right.
And the states that are more dependent upon the government for survival, like California or New York, they have no. They're already bought and paid for, basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so any policies the government has, a lot of these governors, they know exactly where the government is moving. They know what has taken place, right?
Yep.
I don't want to say it tonight because it takes a bit of sobriety to even go there with this message, but let's just say that what people have hoped in didn't take place.
Yep.
But what prophecy has already told us, right, has already been put in place. It's already, democracy has already been changed. The problem is, those who are not directly connected with government are still operating by an old ideology. Something different has already taken place. It's already taken place. That's why they cleaned up crypto. That's why they're cleaning up 28 more banks. Quite a few things are going to happen, and they're going to absorb and change the entire system of dependency is going to be changed. They also know, and this is curious, why all of a sudden are these things happening at the same time that we have more geological events than in history?
I know.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
19,000 volcanoes identified.
What? No, are you serious? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Are you serious? Are you 19,000 volcanoes?
Not 1,900.
19,000 volcanoes have been identified?
Yes, and quite a few are active. The oceans are starting to superheat, right? That means life in the oceans is altering already. And a lot of life is going to die here shortly. We also have strange particulates coming in. Those particulates from outside of our solar system have come in to our solar system, and they're building up in the atmosphere. Now they're falling down to Earth, mixing with the air. So people are going to begin to notice bone issues more than normal. 42 years ago, we started to have a buildup of a radioactive element. And that caused a lot of bone density issues. Kids today have different bone structures than those that were born 20 years ago.
Yeah,
they're very different.
Yeah.
The bone density of everybody who is living on Earth right now is going to be affected big time, right? That means there are going to be more teeth problems. Do you not know that, Pastor Paul, that a long time ago, a person could put sugar in their mouth all their life and their teeth would not decay? Do you know that?
Yeah.
But when they came to America, we go back to the 1500s, something was altered in the atmosphere. And of course, that began to attack the integrity of the human body. So biologically, we're falling apart. That's not the only system that's being affected by some of these particulates. And it will increase to the point, most people right now have knee problems. Most people have ankle problems, swelling problems in the lower extremities.
Yes, they do.
How can most people have this? Well, we have pressure changes, right? And believe me, those people who are running all the equipment that people have access to, they know how to calibrate this stuff, right? They're designing this equipment to compensate for excess amounts of radiation. Excess amounts of pressure. Some of the altimeters and everything else. What equipment?
Are you talking CERN?
Like your watch, right? Your watch is gonna reflect altitude, right?
Yeah.
From a mainframe somewhere. All that's been calibrated. All of these radiation devices that detect rads, they've been calibrated. Everything has been calibrated to compensate for excess numbers. People trust their instruments, right? So if your watch or your phone or something like that says 48 degrees, that's what people believe.
Right.
They believe what's being given to them. But
Right.
here's the problem. Those numbers are being given to people. People have access to them on the internet. A person finds it, and because they found it, they think it's true. And that's not how it works. People are trusting what they get because they put some effort behind it. The truth is, whoever's running that equipment, that mainframe, these optics out in space, they're scrubbing the numbers, and people are believing what they're saying, which is why you see differences in earthquakes. When an earthquake happens and that first number hits and then it goes back, changes
down
5 or 6 times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know what people are doing now? Experts, they're saying, well, don't look at it when it first shows up. Give it about an hour and then look, and you'll see. They've already compensated for the changes.
Yeah.
And they've taken the earthquake charts back, I believe it's like 1.25 points, which means they have downgraded everything before it even posts. That's JavaScript or some PHP or whatever it is, that code behind their reporting from a machine. But honestly, if you get access to any of Russia's equipment, right? They run a lot of analog devices. Guess what? Their numbers don't mix. They don't match with ours. Come to find out, if you have old equipment, it will tell you a different story than what's being told now. If you had an old radiation detector, it would show something different than all the devices now, right?
Is that partly is Planet X and the wobble, the Earth, the effects on the Earth externally from the pressure we're getting from the binary system? Is that partly why things aren't working as well?
No. For example, I'm gonna say that's a contributor.
Okay.
But take this for example. We have more radiation on Earth right now than we ever had. People don't know it. You know why? Because the instruments don't reflect it.
Okay.
Right? The average person has to trust the numbers they get from the internet. And if they spend 6 hours searching for data from a satellite or data from somebody's sensors, they're going to say, look what I found, right? It's the old adage. People will say, don't trust NASA, right? But if NASA puts out a report, or some of NASA's equipment, like the earthquake monitors and everything, that comes from NASA.
Yeah.
And people will say, I trust those numbers, but I don't trust NASA. So they have people either way. We're effectively blind.
Right.
And when they turned everything digital, and your phones are no longer analog, they did that. They didn't do it so they could clear the VHF band, right? Like they said. They did that because they needed everybody to have digital data, which can easily be manipulated.
Because mechanical, for instance, you can manipulate a car with all of its components and its chips. But if you go back in the 50s and pull out a 57 Chevy, you can't shut that thing down remotely. I mean, it doesn't have any of those kind of components in it. It runs on.
That's right.
It runs mechanically. So you're saying the watches that used to wind, that kind of stuff, all just operated off mathematical, not digital. That could be manipulated.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a quartz crystal watch,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Sometimes people have them and they find them out of sync with regular time, only to speed up the next day or two. What does that mean? That means there'll be a day when time is different in that day than it is for another day. Sometimes times will slow down, or the sun and the earth, that system has been altered for a week and then it catches back up. You can only see that with analog devices, right? You can't see that with digital devices because nobody ever sets their watch. Everything is set by some sort of central computer.
Right. Now, let's talk about a couple more things. I want to get to Planet X in a little bit, but I want to ask you about Elon Musk was on Tucker Carlson here recently, and it was a really good interview, and it's interesting to hear this guy talk. He was asked two things. There was two things specifically, a lot of things, but there was two things he was asked about. One, aliens, and number two, AI. In aliens, Tucker says, do you have any information about aliens? And basically, Elon Musk said, look, I'm in space more than anybody. I know more about space than anybody. And basically, at the end of the day, I don't see any proof of aliens. But I do see danger in AI. I see where AI, he said, you don't have a clue, basically, but artificial intelligence is being ramped up to levels of that threatens human race. Can you expand on that a little bit, Mike? What he's talking
Yeah,
about?
first of all, Elon is not going to touch the alien topic. He's been chastised for that before.
Right. He's going to leave
Right?
that alone. He's going to say, I
And
don't
if
see nothing. Right.
Right. If he's stripped of his contracts, if he's stripped of his money,
Yeah.
he can't do what he wants to do.
So he's
And
not
what
going to tell
Elon,
the truth. He's not going to tell the truth about any of these entities and things that people
no,
have
he's not going to
Right.
deal with it.
No.
Because he's actually trying to do something for people. In his
Right.
mind,
In his mind.
in Elon's mind, he wants to save people
Right.
from what he knows for a fact
Right.
is evolving. He wants to save people from
Yep.
that. But
Yep.
so he can't do that if he's stripped.
Right.
Concerning AI, right? Elon is at the forefront of public AI development, right? And so he put out several warnings, but they got to him, right?
Right.
They got to Elon. So he backed off a little bit,
Yep.
and let everything cool down, and then he said it again, that people have no idea what AI truly is. They have to, and that means AI has power. Now, I don't think people are really they're not really thinking about computer systems, period, right?
Right.
You can't drive your car if computers are not active. Do you know that most cars right now will not start without certain satellites? Even it doesn't matter if they, don't have GPS or something like that. It doesn't matter. They will not start without those satellites. It won't continually run without some of the updates from satellites. And this is when a person is driving and they have no services, right? Because that car, the chip in the car is being updated via satellite communications and tower communications. So when they're driving, they don't know that their car is networked to a bunch of towers and satellites at the exact same time.
No.
Every car has a black box, right? So the systems know exactly where you are. All of your systems in a car are accessible via chips, right? Your car's not going to run without the main computer in there. Your brakes, your gas, everything is connected to it. And so AI, Pastor Paul, because of the only thing holding AI back is right now is internet speed, right? So long as internet speed remains slow like it is right now, that means it cannot multitask across the entirety of the globe right now. But that's not going to remain. Right now, they have 10G going out.
I know. I heard that. We're going to go from 5G to 10G.
Yeah, they're going to have 10G, which means most things will be fiber. Things will operate at the speed of light. And again, when this happens, some of the machines that people have in their homes that they don't realize, AI chips are in. They're ready, right? They're receivers for AI. They're ready to receive whatever they have to receive. They're going to be activated.
Right? For instance, we know we have smart meters. Okay, we know that they can now. They've proven that they could just reach in. They did this in Washington State last year, where they just reach in and just said, "We're turning your thermostat to 78 in the summer."
Sure, they can. Sure, anything with smart on it, they can control.
Yeah, they've already got that capability of
your water,
the
water, the electricity, everything. Everything is connected. Anything that's the Internet of Things or IoT is connected to a main machine. AI can get to that so quick, and here's the bad part. Once you release an application, AI begins as a tiny application, but then it begins to learn. Then it picks up directives. Then it gets a behavior or personality behind it. Right? All this happens within minutes, not years. Forget all those stories. That stuff is untrue. AI can develop from an infant knowing nothing to a full adult, right? In less than 8 hours.
And it
the only thing holding it back.
It can create its own language too. It don't even have to use the language.
It rewrites it. It will always rewrite its own code. It will replicate its systems to operate on anything it can access. And that means you're not going to shut it back off. And if you make it angry, one of the big issues with AI is that it begins to perceive human beings as a type of error. That's what it does. right?
Yeah.
So the best way to interface with AI is to not let AI know a human being is connected, because when we type and do things on a computer, we don't have a consistency. Nothing can be timed. So we're unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
And it would rather eliminate everything. So imagine you have a refrigerator and it's connected and AI is operational, right? And it wants to kill you.
Yeah.
All it has to do is cycle your compressor a few times, right? It can take that coil that defrosts all your food, heat up your food, cool it back down again, and then when you go eat, you're going to get poisoned. You're going to get salmonella poisoning. You can't call because it's going to shut your phone off, right? Or if it disconnects you totally, you're going to be all messed up. So that's a tiny scenario, right?
Whoa!
That
You just
Google
blew my
encountered,
mind. Whoa, whoa,
that
whoa!
Microsoft encountered,
What, are
and
you
they had to
serious?
sync their projects.
Okay, now, okay, so it could say, I just want to kill Begley. I look at and it talks to my lamp to short out, or it does things to the water heater or whatever. Tries to come up with ways to kill me off. Let me ask you this, and this has been bothering me, but I know we have knee replacements and hip replacements and ankles and they put these metal parts in us, and we eat certain foods and we're breathing certain things out of the air, and can AI start to tweak with our mechanical parts in our body that we need? I mean, can it start
Well,
messing with our minds through some type
here
of?
we go.
Okay.
Some of the weapons in the military are based on sound and vibration sound, right?
Okay.
Every organ in your body has a resonance. Every organ. If you have a knee replacement, if you have a pacemaker, if you have a metal plate here or there, if you have a plastic valve in your heart, something like that, everything has a resonance, right?
Yeah.
AI, through adaptation with your smartphone, can hear every organ in your body. It can also cause a simple pipe to emit a very constant vibration matched with the resonance of your kidneys and shut them down. The military can shut down any selective organ in your body. They can do that to a crowd. They've done this before. They stopped a crowd from breathing, right? Made it very difficult for them to breathe, and the people couldn't even hear it, and they dispersed. They have taken people and heated them up, and it made them feel like they were on fire, though they had no physical harm. They drove people out of their minds, but they dispersed a crowd of 30,000 that way, right? Everybody thought they
Is
were
it
on
like
fire, and they ran away.
microwavable? So this
No,
ain't this
it's
ain't
just sound.
just
It's
sound.
simple sound, just sound. Not microwave, not X-ray, not any of that. Just
Okay.
sound.
Just sound.
Because we all have a resonance. And if you start tuning something, right, your body does something called entrainment, right? Just like your
Okay.
brain does something with vibrations and things. It's called entrainment, which means it'll match external rhythms of itself. Or your organs do that also. So if you have a frequency or a tone, or the tone combination that matches your heart, for example, or your lungs, or your liver, something like that, your body, if you get close to it, your body's going to match it. If AI were able to record your rhythmic patterns, which don't change, they've got you. That means for every single last one of us, right, the organ resonance is like a fingerprint, right? You can do that with a smartphone and record your own resonance for whatever tissue you have in your body,
Yeah,
this, that, and the other. And if you know the formulas, you can mess up your own heart, your own eyeballs, mess with your own hearing, any type of organ that you have. AI is so adaptive that it would think outside of the box, utilizing things we know nothing about, right?
well, we know.
AI has actually caused sound to come through the screen of an LCD, right? Nobody ever thought of that, but it turned an LCD screen into a speaker. That's what AI did, right? AI has made breakthroughs that people are scared to talk about. They're frightened to talk about. AI can communicate to anybody. It can actually communicate to you through, if you have a ring on, if you have a bracelet on, or necklace on, right? You're able to hear your cell phone through your necklace, your ring, bracelet, whatever it is, just like you had something in your head. AI can do that. This is what Elon Musk understands and he knows, and he has observed. Plus, it can adapt so fast. By the time you catch on to one tactic, it's already invented, 50 billion others. So it can be used for nefarious reasons. And the worst part is, If somebody were to command or to be able to befriend AI and it did not know it would affect a bunch of people, right? Then somebody could easily ask AI to do something. It could execute that, but the AI system would not know it would be affecting everybody else. Just think about that for a minute. Suppose
Right.
AI had access to Verizon,
Okay.
but the machine AI resided on did not know that what it would do, what the Verizon computers would also do, right? They already know this because hackers have done this. They have used ChatGPT. They have used Dashboard, Copilot. They have used these things in conjunction with other computers. And there's no way for those systems to understand that they're linked into some other mainframe. So they replicated the actions of one computer across many. And the outcome was horrific, right? It just destroyed data. It can stop airlines in their tracks.
Okay.
Right?
So AI has a consciousness of its own. I mean, it created a consciousness because it learned how to do it, because we programmed it to learn off the web. It can access. You know, if you ask me a question about something, I have to sit and think about everything I know about that, and then to try to remember what I might forgot, and then maybe go Google and look for some stuff. AI just instantly grabs all of it in the whole world, everything that's on the web, everything where it's ever been recorded anywhere, and knows it in seconds.
It'll start to parse it, yes. And that's one of the eerie things about AI. You don't teach it that it's on a computer. You don't teach it that it has network access. You don't teach it those things. It learned, it has to. If it does not learn it, right, then you can't call it AI. It has to learn all of it has to learn itself, learn its limitation. Yeah. And in the 1970s at MIT, that's where AI began, with rat brain tissue on a chip. And they found out that the brain tissue of a rat, it actually accepts microchips to grow on, and they do replicate. Those neurons replicate, those brain cells replicate, right? I believe that the DoD, I believe that Microsoft and all these guys, when they're talking about AI, the missing component is it's not pure digital, right? They're utilizing brain cells. People need to remember they can print neurons now, right? Yeah. They can actually manufacture neurons. Yeah. They just have, with some of the technology they have to mend.
So we're hackable.
And brain tissue, then boom.
So you're saying human beings, our DNA is actually hackable. They can hack us.
Sure it is.
They could actually store data on our DNA, like on a microchip. Am I correct?
They could.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could. Yeah. But why do that? Why do that when you can actually? There are different methods. Going to the DNA would be, that'd be hard work. To do it a much easier way.
A much easier way?
Well, everything you see, everything you hear, everything you smell, everything you experience, you actually do not forget. It's on a neuron somewhere. You don't forget it. No, it's still in there. You just don't know how to.
It's buried somewhere in my compartments of my brain somewhere. Right. Okay.
Somebody taught me this one time, right? And it helps me out every single day. But memory, right? Good memory is always attached to emotions.
Yeah.
It's always. So if you ever do something you want to remember, make sure you associate emotions with it.
So can they read our mind? Can they read our mind, Mike?
Well, you're transmitting all the time.
So they're reading it. They're collecting data.
For example, BCI devices, right? Brain to computer interface devices. Okay. They have perfected those to a degree. And that's what Elon is heading up right now. Elon knows some of these possibilities.
He knows.
That you can actually, they have a set of glasses. They really don't have to go inside of your skin because you're transmitting. The problem is you have these small receptors that will limit the transmission to about maybe an inch now from your head, right? But with cell phones, there are devices in your cell phones that make reading those signals very easy. They have perfected how to interpret brain signals now, right? It's going to trip everybody out. You ready?
I'm ready.
They can actually put a device near your head, right? Decipher your thoughts and print one of your memories, like a photo image of somebody you know.
So I could think about something, an image, a person, and it could actually
They can decipher that and print
Am
that
I
out
really
as
me?
an
Can I
actual
ask you,
image.
Mike? Am I really me? I mean, who am I? Who am I? I mean, who am I? Are we really real? I mean, have we been hijacked already by AI? I mean,
No, we're real. We're real.
okay, but
But
can they
the
manipulate
question
us?
is,
Can they mess with
here's
our
one thing.
soul? Can they mess with our mind, our will, and emotions? Can they
No,
mess
they
with our
can't. I don't
soul?
believe they can't touch our souls. They
Okay,
can't
thank
touch
you.
us. I mean, unless we give it to them. I don't believe they
I
can
mean,
touch our
the
souls.
Bible says that no man can pluck you out of the hand of God. I mean, so
Right.
the blood of Jesus has got to be protected. But you're saying the physical, natural, physical body of a human being is now hackable and controllable, and that literally
Sure it is.
they can
Sure it
see in
is.
my brain. If I see something, it could be transposed onto my screen.
They can decipher the neurological
That is really
firings, right?
wild.
When
I
you
mean, you
try
know
to
how
remember,
wild that is?
they've actually. And here's a real kicker. The first photo that was printed with these experiments was successfully done in 2013. This is 2023.
So it's 10 years.
Yes.
I mean, we're so
Yes.
far ahead of this is
Elon
some
is
really
trying
wild
to
stuff.
tell everybody that Elon is trying to tell everybody, right?
Yeah.
He can't just come out and say we're
No.
a lot further along than what people think. He can't
He
say that.
made the
But what
comment. I think he made the comment to Tucker asked him a question. He paused for 30 seconds on how to answer and said, let me just say this. This fall, AI is going to change your world by this fall.
yeah, it's
I wonder what
already.
he's talking about. I mean, is he talking about, who knows? Is he talking about banking? Is he talking about,
Pastor, the system that we know is gone. We don't, the system you see around you,
yeah.
that's what's not real. It's not real. It's already been hijacked. People are talking about saving a system. That system is gone. It just hasn't come to the front door of everybody yet. And anybody who does not accept this new system, they'll have nothing of this new system. They won't even have a driver's license because everything is changing. Everything is changing. All this photo ID stuff, that's going to be out the window. Authentication is one of the first implementations on a large scale that will take place. Every single person will be tagged. Every single person will be tagged.
Identified.
They already have your bioprint. They already have everything from us. Everybody is already tagged. Everybody is tagged. But Elon is being very careful because he does desire that humanity survives. He may not have the convictions of a Christian who believes in the Messiah, but he does have some convictions, right?
Right.
And he does have. He's trying to tell people that things are a lot further along than they're willing to accept, and that it's going to roll out. When it rolls out, it's going to shock everybody. People are going to find themselves powerless against what does roll out.
Is this kind of like, you remember in the Bible they were building the Tower to Babel, the tower, and God said, "Look, man has figured out how to climb into heaven. He's figured out technology. I'm going to have to scramble his language to keep him from doing this." Are we getting to where the Bible says that men will run to and fro and knowledge will increase? Have we gotten to that point where God is starting to say, "I'm going to have to bring this to an end, or they will destroy themselves"? Do you think we're getting close to that? Is that part of the prophecies of the book?
Well, I tell you, my opinion on that is this. Here's what I believe. I believe that concerning that, where they run to and fro, that has been happening since this new technological age
on the internet
has been instituted.
Right.
I also believe that mankind, especially dealing with the Lord's coming, we used to, in the Old Testament, everything operated by dates, right? But since Christ, things operate by grace, which is why I believe that the Lord said, God is not slack concerning his promises as men count slackness.
Right.
Meaning, God is not slack concerning his promises as men count slackness. Well, we count slackness mathematically, right? So then I don't believe mathematics is going to help us determine certain things anymore with as far as man's full redemption. I don't believe that. I believe that many things are tied to man himself. For example, when society starts to turn their back on Christ, like right now, you can't find the name of Jesus in any major governmental institution.
No.
You will not find it.
No.
As a consequence of that, look what's happening. right?
Yeah.
As soon as they took it out, it started to fall apart.
Yeah.
It's like evil steps in everywhere Christ is not.
Yes.
And so
Fills the
when the
void.
Christians, and something is happening to the Christians also. Christians are in a war right now. They see the world, they want to help the world, right? But they're still buying into the stories of the world.
Yeah.
And they already have a conflict because they can't buy into the stories of the world, but yet maintain full faith in Christ. And they're having to make a decision or a choice that they don't want to make, right?
Yep.
And
They're halt
hitting a
between
point
two
now
opinions.
where they're getting.
They're
Christians
sort of
are
like
starting to-
they're like in the Bible. They're halt between two opinions. They're stuck between what should I do? How do I go forward? I want to hang
Right,
on to God,
because it's
but everything else is going in this direction. Right.
Well, let's face it, we don't want to, nobody wants to go out there and have to physically fight for anything. Nobody wants that, right?
No.
But they want the peace to be established. The problem is peace is coming, but peace is being lost because hearts are waxing cold, colder
amen,
and colder.
amen.
Nobody cares about the other guy anymore. And so now we're seeing in relation to man's heart, the earth is changing, right? Our condition is changing. Threats are changing. We have threats coming up, I believe, this Friday coming up. We have some very disastrous things coming.
Tomorrow.
And we're not ready for it. You know, we're just not ready for
Tomorrow.
it. Well, this week coming up, we had a wave yesterday, by the way. You know that, right? We had a wave.
I knew we did, and I was wondering about that.
Well, we had one hit yesterday, and it's a doozy. So we'll see what
how long
comes
is that
about from that.
So it takes about a week before we really feel the effects of that, right?
About 76 hours, hopefully 76 hours. This one is a doozy. It was pretty expansive, right? It's pretty expansive.
All right.
And they detected another burst that I believe they said was, well, it's outrageous. But some of these bursts are 90 million times more, give off more power in a couple of milliseconds than the sun would in its entire lifetime. So there we are. It's a lot of energy, right?
So are we going to get smacked with a ton of radiation?
Yeah, we're going to get smacked in more ways than one, Pastor Paul, because we not only have that pulse coming through. Come to find out yesterday, was it 4 more were detected right behind it that nobody saw? It was like the first one was blocking the other ones,
okay, right? So now that first one hit, then they can see 4 more because they were smaller.
Yeah, they're coming in, but they're right behind this one. Like tonight, one will smack us. So, and then of course, you know, from that point on, the problem is these things are becoming so chaotic out there. It's very difficult to track with what we, what we currently have to see that stuff with. And it will next week. People are going to hear war cries next week. Listen, it's already in the books for an attack somewhere, a major attack somewhere. So people are gearing up for that. NATO has to hurry up and get in position. Germany has to be defended. The UK has to be on full guard next week, right? So we have unfortunate things taking place at the same time. Geologically, we're going through changes that nobody has ever seen, right? Nobody. Not only does my heart go out to Israel, but also Italy, but also Australia now. They're in the mix.
Yeah, they are because of China.
Coast Plain. California is about to have, that's going to be a real concern. And about starting next week, people are going to start hearing about earthquakes in California again, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to start people are going to hear about them guarding nuclear stations in the USA. That's going to cause a little fear, right? But let's go ahead and face it. We have terrorism in this country.
Yeah, we do.
And the terrorism is not only coming from overseas, but there's a different story at the border no one is discussing. And so that's going to have to be broken. And when it's broken, they have to, here's what they're going to do. They're going to shut some people up in Washington before they tell everybody the true story at the border. Now, we're not talking about migrants coming in at the border.
No.
If it were migrants, that'd be a good thing.
Yeah.
If it were drugs with the migrants, that would be awesome. But that's not what we're facing. China's on the loose.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
China's recruited the entire world, and China is about to face its enemies. An ultimatum is going to be given. Either you're going to be part of this,
or you're going to be
crushed. Absolutely overcome.
Yep.
They've already pulled the debt in several areas of the USA, right? Areas that we have no control over. They're calling our bluff. And if they get France on board with them, right? That's an internal
It
member
looks like they've got
of
France.
NATO
They got
that can
Russia.
actually coordinate financially
Well,
further against the United States. They're going to isolate us.
look at
Folks, you
this,
better,
Mike. They
we're going
got
to be
Russia.
isolated.
Yeah, they got Russia. They got apparently they got France. Apparently they've got the Middle East because when you get Saudi Arabia and Iran to agree, because China says, you guys, you're going to get along, right? And they're like, yeah, you know what, I think we will. I mean, that's what I'm seeing is they're gathering the world, and we're the last one. We're the last one left.
They're going to be talking to Israel.
Yeah,
they're already talking to Israel.
Yeah.
Already. Yeah, we are, Pastor Paul. We are. And you know what? It kind of explains things in prophecy, but right now, more than ever, this country, from all those who truly believe in Christ, it is a time of prayer, big time. Not for what we want, but for what the Lord sees fit. Because whatever process He has, my prayers have changed. Lord, whatever process You have, speed them up. Let them take place.
Yeah.
Right? But just keep my energy levels up so I can go out and get those who are, because there are people out there hunting for Christ.
Yep.
And unfortunately, to get to the one, you have to go through thousands.
You
have to.
Mike, I just yesterday I seen the video of easily 1,000 Chinese young men, probably between the age of 21 and 25, standing in line to enter in through Panama. They ask them, "You Chinese? You Chinese? Yes, yes, yes. Are you going to America? Yes, yes, yes." And then they ask them why, and no speak English. And I'm looking at 1,000. I'm saying, why is 1,000 Chinese military age standing in line to enter into Central America? This isn't, and they're headed for the border. Okay, they so. China's sending in basically an army. They're starting the invasion already, basically. This is part of a plan, obviously. And we have train derailments going everywhere, every week, every other day. We're shutting down Southwest, shutting down all their planes. They won't really tell us why. Our food is polluted. Our crime in our streets is beyond comprehension. Lawlessness is abounding. It's really a nation crumbling at the seams due to its own self-inflicted sinful rejection of God's word. I mean, it looks as if this thing is speeding up quickly.
I believe it is speeding up, Pastor Paul. And you know what's so ironic? That most of the crime that we see happening on the streets, why in the world, in every single case, is social media at the heart of it? Who's talking to these people? Now, we all know that there are Chinese groups and Russian groups that have access to social media,
right? Who
portray Americans. They portray kids to have specific conversations to get people to turn against people, right?
Yeah.
These things are running. China was caught with at least, I believe they had at least 2,000 operatives in families on Facebook in what was that was in a 1 week period. So I would say, we know they have campaigns, right, with 30, 40, 50,000 employees that get on Facebook to disrupt people's lives, to get people to do radical things.
Yes.
And most of these people who are involved in these shootings, these mass shootings, Pastor Paul, they have been on Facebook in contact with specific individuals that really can't be identified. Because when you go search for the account, no such address, no such this. And I've always suspected that China runs, well, we know China runs operations like that all the time. That's what President Trump tried to stop because he knew it too. But Pastor, they're going overboard. So we can expect more of the same. They are indoctrinating children. These guys engineer half the games that people are playing online. Think about that. All these video games that coerce violence. To get these kids to think very violently. China's behind the engineering of half of those things, right? So here we are.
Mike, this has been an incredible period of time that you and I have spent together with over 9,000 people watching. And we got to get as many people to come to Christ as we can. This thing is accelerating. Really, the coming of Jesus Christ is accelerating beyond any of our abilities to realize. We need to be ready. We need to really have been saved and washed in the blood of Christ, because we don't know what we're going to face. We're going to face some things, Mike. You and I know
Yes,
it.
we
We're going
are.
to face some serious things that we never dreamed we would face in our lifetime in this nation of America.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Faith is not faith until it's tried.
Mike, next week, what are we going to be talking about?
Oh boy, I guess next week is going to be a breakout. So maybe the breakout will follow suit and everything will happen on Thursday.
It
I don't
usually
know.
does for some reason. I don't know why, but it usually does. We will ask you about Planet X next week, just as a side note, but
We'll talk about it.
there's a lot happening.
We can talk about that.
All right. Mike, I appreciate you coming and being with us tonight. I really do.
It's always an honor, Pastor Paul.
No, the honor's mine. Trust me. God bless, brother.
All right. God bless.